and welcome to the second chapter in Endgame, which is the finale in the Robyn Carter series. As you now know, it isn't a standalone book, but you can get it at the end of The Chosen Ones if you now buy The Chosen Ones. If you had a copy of The Chosen Ones some time ago and no longer have it, then you can still find out what happens by staying tuned to this channel. So subscribe below and join me every day this week where I shall be reading a chapter from the book. So, hopefully without too many errors, here we go today. Sunlight dazzled the road surface and belted the contestants as they struggled through the second stage of Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire, bent through fatigue, accentuated by the extraordinarily warm temperatures. The spectators, dressed in light summer clothing, huddled in patches of shade provided by the trees lining the route to hide from the relentless scorching sun rays. Robyn had already depleted her reserves and was struggling more than usual. The first stage, the 1.2-mile swim across Chasewater Reservoir, had taken it out of her, and she was well behind her best time, like many others, thanks to the unprecedented temperatures, and was now battling to get ahead in the cycling. She'd completed Ironman events before, but this year was like no other. She couldn't find her rhythm, and her normally well-focused mind was refusing to cooperate. She should never have agreed to the challenge. She wasn't in a good place emotionally and had been working too hard. Lactic acid was already forming in her muscles, making each push of the pedals almost impossible. She was also distracted because of recent events surrounding the death of her fiancé, Davis, an intelligence officer. She had believed he'd been killed in an ambush in Morocco in March 2015, but it had recently come to light that she'd been fed a pack of lies, and that Davis had not died in Morocco, although whether he was still alive was unknown. She settled her bike a short distance behind another, ridden by a lean man in green leggings, and hurtled down the straight road in the direction of Blithfield Reservoir. There was no need to use up her flagging energy. It was far too hot for that. If she remained tucked in this position for 3 miles, and then waited until they climbed the steep hill from the reservoir, she might conserve sufficient energy to overtake the contestant in front of her. She knew this route by heart, and there were no difficult corners to navigate. Her thoughts returned to the conversation 2 days earlier, when Davis's friend and colleague Hassan had broken the news that they'd all been duped. "So where is Davis?" "Honestly, I don't know. He might be in captivity somewhere, or he might have been murdered, or maybe he's still in hiding until he can find out what he needs to about Peter Cross. He wasn't safe while Cross was still in charge." "Who's hunting you? Why are you on the run?" "I've killed Peter Cross. I have my own methods of establishing the truth. Cross sent an assassin after us. He wanted us both dead. Of course, I have no proof of his corruption. Without Davis's information, I can't prove anything, and so I'm on the run from agents who believe I am nothing more than a murderer, an agent gone rogue. I must leave now. I've stayed here too long, and they'll be on to me. I'm truly sorry, Robyn. I know Davis would be too." Peter Cross, who worked for the intelligence service and was both Davis's and Hassan's superior, had kept a great deal from her, including the truth about her fiancé. Davis hadn't been killed in an ambush while on a mission in Morocco, as she'd believed. The upset, stress, and subsequent loss of her unborn child, brought about by this whole business, had been completely unwarranted. The last 2 days had been torturous. Not as dreadful as the days following his apparent death, but bad enough. She'd wanted closure, and yet all she had were more unanswered questions. Alive or dead? Did she hope he was dead? If he was alive, he wouldn't be the same man she'd fallen for. How could he be? Given what he'd been through since Morocco, the nausea that had been present since Friday night rose again, a violent wave that threatened to destabilise her. She fought it down, determined to beat it. She'd use the mounting anger and frustration of the last 48 hours to her advantage, to make her more determined to plough on and finish the event. Finding a rhythm, her mind bounced back once more to Friday night and the explosion that had rocked her quiet street. A few minutes after Hassan had left to escape his hunters, an Audi, stationed down the road, had burst into flames. The fire brigade had arrived almost immediately, along with a counter-terrorism squad. She sees nothing from her window, other than flashing blue lights and fire engines. They've arrived on the scene quickly. Too quickly. She spots the anxious faces of her neighbours pressed to windows on the opposite side of the street. Counter-terrorism police with megaphones walk the road, telling everyone to remain calm and stay inside. She draws her curtains. Robyn alone knows this is no terrorist attack. She sits back in a chair, her cat on her knee, and watches a film on television, trying hard to concentrate on what is playing out on the screen rather than outside, but it's no use. Some half an hour later, there's rapping at her door, and a kind-faced officer tells her there's nothing to worry about. The vehicle that exploded had a defective ignition switch or some other electrical fault. The driver noticed the engine was on fire and pulled over. He got out and called the fire brigade before it exploded. Just wanted to reassure you that there's no cause for concern. He speaks the words with sincerity, having undoubtedly been told that that is what happened, but Robyn doubts him. The car was Hassan's. Her guess is that Hassan has finally been hunted down. He has been silenced. Robyn rounded the bend towards the reservoir at high speed, passing cheering crowds gathered to watch the spectacle. The rider in green was still ahead of her, but flagging, his head bobbing with the effort of pedalling in such high temperatures, the distance between their bikes reducing by the minute. Robyn, hunkered down in her seat, arms resting on the handlebars, now focused on the shimmering water ahead of her as they raced down the hill past hedgerows and fields. She couldn't afford to think about Davis or Hassan. She was done with thinking about her lost fiancé. What mattered was the here and now, her friends, her colleagues, and those she loved most, her cousin Ross, his wife Jeanette, and Davis's daughter, Amélie. She had her future to consider, a life without deceit and confusion. Davis's face flashed in front of her. How could he have allowed her to get involved? He should never have invited her to join him in Morocco. If he hadn't, she might have been a different person. She might have found some happiness, even after his death, instead of playing the blame game over and over again. And most importantly, she might not have miscarried their baby. Sweat pooled in the nape of her neck. She'd been working non-stop for 2 weeks on a murder case, and it had taken its toll on her fitness levels. Ordinarily, she'd breeze this stretch of the race, but today, with the fiery sun burning down on her neck and shoulders, the heavy weight of her heart, and the sickness that rose again from the pit of her stomach, Robyn's vision began to swim. Before she could react, she'd collided with the bike in front of her. The rider regained control, but Robyn, lost in an ever-enclosing darkness, fell to one side in a dead faint. The bike careered into the verge and toppled, throwing Robyn into the air. She landed on the ground, where she lay motionless. And that is the end of chapter 2. Please join me again tomorrow for chapter 3. Find out what happens next in the finale of Robyn Carter series, Endgame. And finally, thank you to all of you who are Robyn Carter fans. Thank you for sticking with her, for being there, for watching this, for subscribing, and for buying all the books. And I have enjoyed writing this, so I hope you enjoy the end as well. Thanks very much for tuning in. See you tomorrow.